Welcome to the Change Leicester Square Theatre podcast. My guest this week is Pippa Evans. Hey, why not become a badger at gofasterstripe.com/badges, pay £1 or more a month and get lots of extras and help us make more podcasts, or a dripster at d.rip/Richard-Herring, £4 a month, and you get even more extras, including all downloads of my shows and the question and answer sessions. We should try and work out how to do those, Chris. Chris Evans, not that one's just over there. And yeah, it's good. So come and see it. I'm also on tour at the moment, so come and see me this week. I don't know which week it is. Oh, I'm in Wolverhampton. That's always a disaster on the 27th. Kettering on the 28th. Nottingham, that's doing pretty well on the 29th. And Scarborough, Leeds. And then on the 4th of May, I am doing the DVD record at the Queen Elizabeth Hall. And the MacFest on the 6th. There's loads more to come. You'll find out about them in future weeks. Anyway, why don't you go to gofasterstripe.com and just buy a book or a DVD as well. That would be a nice way to pay something back to me and Chris Evans. He's over there. Look, you can look at him. He's there with his tiny son. Look at him. Turn around, look at him. There's Kinga as well. Anyway, let's sit back and enjoy Rehearsal with Pippa Evans. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Leicester Square Theatre. Please welcome a man who still has Brian Blessed's voice ringing in his ears. It's Richard Herring. Wow, you're much better than last week's audience. They were useless. Useless. They got a standing ovation for the guests. The first time that's ever happened last week. What an amazing audience they were last week to give that to Brian Blessed. Imagine if we did 2 in a week and you had to follow that one. Imagine. So welcome to... we're going to have a great time. You're a lovely audience. This is Rich James, Leicester Square Theatre podcast. I was talking to Brian Blessed the other week. He calls everyone Fucking hell. I don't want to get into being one of these actors who just talks about his kids, but my daughter is funny as fuck. And my daughter was quite obsessed with Frozen, as all kids are. But then last week she came back from nursery school, and we've never watched this programme, but she was just suddenly obsessed with Spider-Man, right? Just obsessed with Spider-Man. And she was going to go to World Book Day. We got a rabbit costume for her, so she could be a bunny. There's loads of books with bunnies in them. And she said, I want to be Spider-Man. On the morning, she was going to... I'm a Spider-Man, I want to be Spider-Man. And my wife managed to track down a Spider-Man costume in our tiny village. My daughter's been dressed as Spider-Man, but she's still obsessed with Elsa from Frozen. So she's going, I'm Spider-Man and Elsa, that's what she said. I'm Spider-Man and Elsa. And she's singing Frozen in the car, and if I try and sing with her, she goes, I'm Elsa and Spider-Man. So I'm not allowed to do anything, even though... Because when they're singing the Frozen song, I like to sing Nicole Never Bothered Me Anyway, and I think that's a good... But I'm not even allowed to do that. She doesn't even let me do dad jokes. So but it's interesting. I say, what does Spider-Man do? And she doesn't know, because it's like an older kid has come into nursery and loves Spider-Man. And so she goes, what does Spider-Man do? She goes, power. Which is what Elsa does as well. So she knows that, power. There's one's ice and one's webs. It's interesting, but as a child, that's all you have, is the desire for power. Anyway, welcome to the show. We have a fantastic guest this week. She is probably best known for her appearance on Finders Keepers. That is not the Richard Stilgo version that I remember. Finders Keepers, not for sleepers. No, that's my one person in the audience that remembers Finders Keepers. She's from Finders Keepers with Neil Buchanan of Art Attack. Do you remember that? Yeah, I don't. I was a grown-up when that was on, so it'd be weird if I did remember it. But that is all we're going to talk to her about. Will you please welcome Pippa Evans? Thank you. Hello. Thank you so much for coming on.
You are welcome.
Oh, my goodness.
I'm exhausted.
The last week's podcast continued in the dressing room.
Oh, it did, yeah.
For quite some time.
I got my own 4 anecdotes. I got my own 4 anecdotes, personal anecdotes, anecdoted at me. That was beautiful. What a moment.
It was pretty amazing.
A moment to tell my children about.
Yeah.
Brian and me.
Yeah, well, usually I ask people if they have any experience with Brian Blessed, but I've just been through it with you, so I don't need to...
I would like, in many ways I feel like we could spend the next 20 minutes doing sort of a counselling session for you, where we go through the various body shapes that you took on whilst Brian was doing anecdotes. So maybe I'll do the body shapes that you were doing. You can tell me what you were thinking.
I was thinking... I was wondering if I could get away with actually having a little nap. Because I'm pretty tired.
I think you could have, actually. I think Brian held it very well without you. But that's great. I'm actually quite looking forward to listening to it.
Yes.
Because it will be like... someone will probably go on that and think, I thought I'd downloaded Richard Herring's podcast. But it seems to be monologues of Brian Blessed. Wow, great.
Well, it was pretty much what I expected.
Oh, yeah.
I have to say, so, yeah. And unlike his publicist said, you got more questions than anyone else has ever done. I mean, he didn't necessarily try to answer them, but at least they... there's so many things I didn't talk to him about. Shall I just quickly tell you about them?
You
Then
we'll get
on to you.
Well, then we could figure out if I know.
He was in a plane crash in
Venezuela.
Venezuela.
Did he make it happen?
Don't know.
Was he talking to the pilot?
Someone tweeted me to say that he'd told him in an interview, Brian had told him that he'd commanded an avalanche to stop, and it had stopped.
Which you'd think would be the reverse with that voice. You think it would increase it?
When he was in Everest and nearly died in 1990, this is why I thought this is a good question. The ghost of his granddad came and told him that he would be fine just to go down and he would come back in 2001 and have another go. That's what the ghost of his granddad told him. When he was a child, he could see the future. This is just some of the things we didn't... When he went to Bristol Oval with Patrick Stewart, they couldn't afford to go from Yorkshire to Bristol, so they travelled down on the back of an open coal truck that was going down and arrived in Bristol covered in bird shit and coal. That's, which I think might be quite a good urban myths thing for that Sky TV series. They do urban myths. He punched Peter Capaldi, nearly killed him by accident. He played Jean Valjean. I didn't get on to talking about that. That would have been good. So anyway, I made 4 pages of fucking notes for that cunt. So let's move on.
Didn't he also ask the Dalai Lama how he managed to not have erections anymore?
He did, yes.
And he said, I take very cold showers.
Yeah.
That's nice.
And he sparred with the Dalai Lama and let the Dalai Lama beat him.
What? I think you mean that he let the Dalai Lama win rather than he...
Oh, yeah. Well, they were sparring as boxers.
Okay.
He was a champion boxer, and I think the Dalai Lama had boxed as a kid as well.
Oh, okay.
And so they had a sparring match as adults, I think. I didn't quite grasp the truth of that one. It's very confusing. I say truth in the loosest... I know, I'm not going to forget that one. No. Some of them I forget.
No, let's see how the next 40 minutes go. Eh?
Give me a ring in 2 years and see if I remember you being on the podcast. I will, I'm sure. So, Finders Keepers. You, as a kid, you were on a few TV shows.
What a great thing to start with. When I was a kid, I really loved children's television.
Yeah.
Because I was a kid, and that's what you watch. And me and my brother wrote to ITV, or whatever it was then, I don't know, it was Granada maybe, and asked to be on Finders Keepers, which was just a kids show where you got to search through a house and find stuff, answer clues, and you'd find stuff. So, I was on that. I was on Saturday Disney. I was on Newsround a couple of times.
On Newsround?
Yeah, just yawning. They came to film our assemblies a few times at school. Just as a kid, I just started the bug of wanting to be a performer a bit.
What's Neil Buchanan like in real life?
He's got terrible breath.
Okay.
Yes. That's all I remember of Neil Buchanan. It was not. Wasn't a great. What the weirdest thing was, a comedian texted me because he said, just text me saying, "Were you on Finders Keepers?" And it was being repeated on Challenge TV. and we had these helmets that we had our names on. So my helmet had Pippa. So that he just took a screen grab of the pit and just said, "Is this you?" That's really creepy. And so if you go on my website, you can see I put it up and with a picture of me making the same face. You can kind of tell it is me. Yeah. But it was a bit of a go back to the future.
Well, it's sort of weird how, I find, I mean, I can't talk about being old now because Brian Blessed has talked about being young and, at 81. I mean, that's incredible. He's 81. Right, but I was watching, someone tweeted the hand jive from Blockbusters. Remember on Friday afternoons on Blockbusters.
The hand jive?
The audience just did these things. They did all this. There was a little... they cut to the audience on Fridays, and the audience of like teenagers did this quite sad little... hand jive thing.
I don't remember that.
Oh, but then you watch it now and you go, all those people are 50 years old. And it's just terrifying. So it's terrifying the way time passes by, that's what I'm saying.
Was the audience of Blockbusters teenagers?
Yeah.
Why?
Because it was teenagers in the...
Was it for kids?
Yeah,
Blockbusters. I always thought that was a grown-ups programme.
I'm thinking, no.
I don't remember grown-ups.
It was students.
Were they students?
Yeah. Well, they would usually... quite a lot of people... There was someone with Daniel Kitson on the other day.
Really?
Someone was tweeting, Daniel Kitson, I only saw the first bit, but he wasn't doing very well. Stephen Merchant was on it. Ben Moore was on it, who's my friend who got 5 gold runs.
Wow.
Got to go to LA and met Mr. T.
What?
That was his prize.
That's your prize for winning Blockbusters?
Yeah, it was proper. If you did 5 gold runs, the 5th gold run was a pretty good prize.
Wasn't there a rumour that Bob Holness just did the saxophone on Baker Street? Yeah, but it wasn't true.
It wasn't true. He did play James Bond, though, I think, on the radio. Was he the first person to play James? Then the Wikipedia nerds are back in force. I tell you, there was a couple of series where I lost the nerds and it became quite cool, this show, but now it's back to the fucking dweeb. Yeah, fucking Bob. When's he going to mention James Bond? And if he doesn't mention, I'm going to have to shout out. That's the only reason I did it. They're a lovely crowd. They are very nice. I mean, there's so much to talk to you about. I mean, have you just been in Norway, like yesterday?
Yes, that's right. Spent the weekend in Norway.
Because I saw a picture of you on a plane and I thought, fuck, I'm going to Norway. I thought she'd forgotten about the podcast.
No, we spent a week. So I'm in an improv group called the Glenda J Collective.
Yes.
And that's me, Ruth Bratt, Carrie Ad Lloyd, and Josie Lawrence, who some of you will know from Whose Line Is It Anyway?
Yes,
she was my god, and now I work with her.
It's pretty astonishing lineup through all 4 of you there.
A super fun, great show, guys. Yeah. Come see our Soho Theatre run. Thank you. So we went to Det Andre Teatret, which is the Norwegian improv theatre. Okay. And we had this amazing time just being in Norway, where everyone is just so nice. And you eat breakfast, and the breakfast is basically everything's pickled, so they should be incredibly sour people, but they are lovely. So we just had a wonderful weekend in the snow, making up shows.
It's pretty good. It's very expensive. The alcohol's very expensive in Norway.
Is it? I mean, it's like we live in London. Alcohol is expensive in London. Well, it's like £25 for a bottle of wine in a bar.
Yeah.
That's not that weird, is it?
No.
Is that a lot of it money?
Yeah.
How much would you spend on a bottle of wine, Richard?
$5.99 down at Tesco.
Yeah.
I get it from Tesco, then I'd go home and drink it on my own. And A, you get twice as much wine, and B, it's really cheap.
Well, that's the way you go, Richard. The Norwegians, they like to share. That means they're generally not alcoholics as well, in the way that we are.
So what does the Glenda J Collective, is there a spin on that, or is it just you're doing improv games, or is it...
It's games.
Sorry, I have some very serious theatrical...
Very serious theatrical things. And we do scenes, and then we sing improvised songs, and we just have a great time together. We spent, for example, the show on Saturday, we did a whole scene where we played different parts of a sandwich. We played... at the beginning, we get 4 words, so 4 objects. I think it was vacuum cleaner, ball, very long pole, and...
These are all just parts of a vacuum cleaner.
Yeah. And then the scenes were all inspired by those things.
Yeah.
And then we did a a heavy metal song called The Black Unicorn. So it's just making up stuff.
Because improv has become very cool again.
Yes, it has. And I started it when it wasn't cool.
Yeah, well, I remember in the 90s it wasn't cool. And I used to take the piss out. I wrote a play where I did a scene where everyone went to improv and I had a terrible time and took the piss out of it. And there was a lot of kind of bad, mainly student improv, I would say, in the 90s.
Oh, yeah.
And then now it's become, through people, I mean, to be fair, Josie Lawrence was doing pretty well through the 90s with those guys. But the stuff you would see at clubs and in Edinburgh was like a lot of students doing it. And now it's these very involved showstoppers and ostentatious as well, which Carrie adds in.
Yes.
These are very involved ideas where you're taking quite sophisticated. So in Showstoppers, you improvise.
So Showstopper, we improvise a full musical. So it's Showstopper, the improvised musical, and our aim is to improvise a show that is as good as a West End musical.
Right.
So it's quite a high bar we've set ourselves, and we actually were the first improvised show ever to win an Olivier Award. So that is pretty sexy stuff. So people come and see us. Thank you, one person clapping, probably my husband. So our aim is actually to make improvisation an art form rather than what it is known for, which is being shit.
Well, it's sort of an unfair. It's an unfair. But it's also improv people are kings now. So like all the, the ostentatious people have taken over the MASH report basically.
Oh yeah,
the MASH report's doing fantastically well.
Yes, absolutely.
And so there's that. It is like an incredible grounding in becoming, fantastic at. Well, it's stuff like Murder and Successful and stuff. There's all these improvised shows on TV as well, aren't there?
Well, not all as Murder and Successful. Name the next one.
Yeah,
exactly. It's just one.
Okay.
But it is becoming cooler, and people are less kind of rude about it.
Having
now.
that skill, because you do character stuff as well.
Yeah, I do character stuff and talking. I do a lot of stuff on Radio 4.
Yeah.
So I play a lot of characters and people's things, which just basically means I like putting voices on because I feel more comfortable that way.
But I think like talking to you and Danielle Ward, who are probably around about the same age.
I don't know.
And
I'll have to
do you know
text
Danielle
her.
Ward? You didn't know you're the same age?
No, I don't know if we are. We could be.
We could be.
It's not the first thing we ask 50s, when you meet someone.
You're both women younger than me, but you both, but you've had quite long careers, both of you already, and it's sort of interesting. This incredibly talented group of people coming through. But it seems very difficult to kind of make that leap onto
the leap. You mean the leap to the... well, what is that leap anyway? I've become very philosophical about this whole thing. Well, because you spend your first 5 years in comedy going, why doesn't anyone love me? And then you go, oh, it's because you were shit. Because you are. When you start, you're shit. And there's like very few people who start who are brilliant. And then you have to learn. So you go, oh, actually, there's a reason. And then it's sort of like we all fight to get on Mock the Week or 8 out of 10 Cats. And actually, very few people are suited to that show. Sure. So actually, you need to do things that inspire you. So rather than fighting to get recognised by the number of Twitter followers you have or whatever, it's better to just do something that makes you feel happy.
Got 220,000.
Say again?
Yeah. Feel pretty good about it. So,
well, that's how you measure your life, Harry. But yeah, so I don't feel there's two ways of looking at it. You get bitter or you just enjoy the life you have.
Well, no, I think that's the way through it. We're talking to Catherine Ryan as well a couple of weeks ago, and she's she's made that leap, but she's still very philosophical about it all. I think she sort of... It's good to see that kind of wisdom. It's taken me until I'm 45, 50 to feel that calm about it, I think. Yeah, well,
so we've all watched you struggle,
yeah.
Richard. I knew Lee before I knew Harry. So it is tricky, isn't it? And it's so hard. Comedy is the worst in terms of learning on the way. That's horrible. It's like someone giving you a violin and saying you're going to learn this, but in front of everybody. Yeah. So you're basically going around going, and I'm going, you're fucking awful. Please stop. You're going, no, I really think I've got something. Yeah? You have to keep playing that violin until somebody goes, and you might be playing something beautiful where you have to wait till the right person finds you. And it's so true. Like it's only when all the people who've made it, and I did pretend inverted commas for the people listening at home, but the people who've made it, it's because somebody went, I believe in you, and I'm sort of very grateful for the people that have said that to me, and they still big me up and push me to do things. You know, so I'm doing a Radio 4 show this year, that's very exciting, and that's through Alison Vernon-Smith, who first started working with me maybe 10 years ago, or was it 8 years ago, and so her just going, I believe in you, so I'm going to just keep pushing you. And things just take time, and I think when you're young, you're very impatient, aren't you?
Yeah, but I also think it's, you know, I suppose what I was getting at as well, or trying to get towards, was that by having all that time to, exactly what you say, you work for all that time, and it's not banging the spotlight straight away, so you get good at what you're doing. I think to be able to do improv well, and you know, it's an amazing skill. And I watch all you guys doing it, and it's the one part of comedy that I can't wrap my head around how you manage to do it, right? So if I go and see a stand-up comedian, I can usually know, I work out how they do it.
Yeah.
Even if I couldn't do it, I can still work out what they're doing. But with improv, it seems the really first class high concept stuff is just it's almost magical, I think.
Yeah, and it's really hard work. And people always go, "Oh, how's Showstopper so good?" Because we work on it every week. Why do you rehearse improvisation? Because it is a skill. It's like football. You know, you wouldn't go, "Oh, you're quite good at football. Next week you're going to play in the FA Cup final." It's like you train. That's all it is. It's just training skills. Yeah. And obviously you have to be good at it. And I think I think everybody should have a go at improvisation, but I will say I don't think everyone should perform improvisation in front of a paying audience. And that is the hardest thing, is that there's some improvisation is so great, but some of it's awful. And those shows, you know, they're the ones that people tend to see because they might only be £2, £3 to get in. And people go, isn't it the same with we have this argument all the time in stand-up comedy land, which is, are free shows a good idea? Or is it, you know, when you go to a comedy night, you go, wow, it's really busy here tonight. And they go, yeah, we put it on voucher. You go, so everyone's paid like £1 to get in. And you just go, this is not going to be fun. As everyone's going, chug, 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 chug. Well,
so, but these are all interesting. I think your last show was Joy Provision, which my wife saw and liked very much.
Well, that's very nice.
I didn't go and see anything in Edinburgh.
Why?
Because I just can't be bothered anymore.
Oh.
Listen, if I'm up now, if I wasn't doing a show myself, I was sort of doing 1.5 shows myself, and I just get too tired to enjoy very much of other people's stuff. So I just go home and play Civilization. I was writing my emergency questions book for much of last Edinburgh, but it sounds like a really interesting concept because but I think also like it's sort of about trying to do comedy that's joyful and find fun. Is this right? It's sort of about, you know, comedy being funny rather than
comedy funny than what?
Like, I just think there's a lot. Again, like with comedy, that it becomes successful a little bit sometimes. It's sort of like more, oh, this is great because it's very serious and political. This is great because it's, you know, they're stretching the art form. But it feels like you were just trying to do a show that would make people happy. Is that?
Yeah. So obviously the great Ken Dodd died today.
Yes.
Sad face. Really, you know, and his whole motto was, you know, I just want to make the room happy. That's my job, is to make people happy. So there is something about that. But we're also in a complicated time where it's really hard it feels kind of frivolous maybe to just be happy for a whole hour. So we're also like, how can we be happy? Because we're all sort of struggling with, now we have news all the time. Yeah. The news is essentially everyone is dying, everyone is drowning in the sea, no one is having a good time, the seahorses are full of cling film, like everyone is miserable. So how can we, is it okay for us to be happy, or how do we be happy when we're essentially a very privileged country? Are we allowed, or should we be flogging ourselves all the time, you know, sure, slapping ourselves with whips, not in a sexy way? And so that was really the question of that show. Yeah. And we didn't really come up with an answer. We just had a nice time for an hour.
But I think that's, you know, I think it's interesting because in a way, as much as I love going to see political shows and shows that are topical, and I know there was some topicality in this show, but it's you know, you kind of want to escape the world when you come to comedy sometimes, right?
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
sort of want to...
Well, because I love singing as well, so all my shows always have tons of singing in it, and so it's never going to be real. You know, it's not... I'm just not very good at topical stuff. I want to be interested in it, but I'm not great at it. And I sing songs on the Now Show, which is a topical comedy show, so I do have to be interested in it sometimes, but I find it really hard to make fun of a lot of stuff that's happening in the world. So it's sort of like, well, let's Why don't we just shut ourselves off from the world for an hour, have a great time, so that we feel revived to go back out in the world?
Yeah, and I sort of think, I think just the older I get, the more I feel this, though, that it's, you know, I've done shows that are deliberately to annoy people and make them sort of have a bad time. And which is fine when you're like 32 or something and you don't know anything about... You know, now I sort of feel like when I'm doing a show, now I'm a parent, I think, Christ, you know, I get to go out once a month if I'm lucky. I don't want to go out and see some cunt annoying me on purpose. I want to go out and see someone who's going to make me feel happy and forget about my stupid fucking children who think Spider-Man and Elsa are somehow compatible. She's complaining that her towel only had Elsa and Anna on it and no Spider-Man on it. We have to make her a fucking Spider-Man Elsa towel now, don't we?
I think there is a responsibility there, isn't there? When you go, so as a performer, your responsibility is to entertain people.
Yes.
So people have paid. So especially if people have kids, they're like, I've paid for a babysitter.
Yes, exactly.
I have paid for dinner. I've paid for a cab so that I can fucking have a drink. and so I'm going to get to this show, and you better fucking entertain me because this has been a big ordeal. So someone's come in with like £175 worth of debt to your crappy little Edinburgh show, and you're like, I'd like to talk about North Korea. No! So you see, your responsibility is to recharge those people and look after them, let them have a good time rather than leave
Well, I think
heavy.
I think you can do other stuff around it, but the first thing is it's got to be
entertaining,
and, you know, not all funny all the way through.
No.
As my podcasts have shown you over the years. But not bad, given we're just making shit up as we go along. You
have a different relationship here, though, because their relationship is they've come to listen to you just talk to someone, which I find amazing that you've met. That's a great... What an amazing thing to have done. That's
nice.
Will you pay money to watch me talk to someone? Some of them you will have heard of. Some will be complete strangers. Yes, I would like to part with money to watch you talk to someone. It's impressive, isn't it?
It is. Well, I was just mentioned this on the Reginald D. Hunter one, but like when I first started doing stand-up, I really wanted to be able to just come. I saw him do a show where he just a stand-up headline set where he just seemed to talk and make it up as he went along. I just thought that would be. I was so scripted when I started back again, and I just thought, wouldn't it be amazing just to do a whole show that's, you know, you could do that. You could just tell stories, which sort of is what I mean. This with some help. This is, and with Brian Blessed, quite a lot of help. This is, you know, what this has become. So that's interesting. There's an improv aspect to this as well.
Yeah.
So you know, it's but it's you're bouncing off people, and I think what I was talking to you about backstage is this show very much wraps around the personality of whoever is in that seat, really.
Yeah.
So if you know, there's been a few people who want to do a monologue, and there's been some people who want to have a dialogue, and there's some people who want me to have a monologue. So it's, you know, so you've got to be able to cope with all those different things. So that's I suppose that's if there's, you know, any skill to it is just being able to adapt to different people. But I like comedy, you know, so I only have people on this that I like.
Thank you.
So you know, it's a massive compliment. I also have people. You know, I think I've been really impressed by how few pricks people have been. You know, how few, especially the really successful people. And you hear stories about certain comedians, some of whom haven't been on, and you kind of think, oh well, will this person be a prick in real life? And nearly everyone's really nice.
But is this really real life?
But backstage as well,
I see.
You know, I mean, it's... Yeah, but you get... I think...
But you think they might be a prick to you back then, knowing that you're the king of this room? I think
also, in an hour of talking, it's very hard to not allow your prickdom to come through.
Oh. Challenge.
We're only... I didn't even notice what time we started. Yes.
I once had to. I have a long history of being the person people call when a famous person drops out of a show, and they go, "Just get Pippa Evans, she'll do it." I once had to go on for Reginald D. Hunter.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, we have a very different audience. Hi guys, there's some comedy and some funny songs. They were not impressed. Sad days.
And I also I think this is similar to me, that you talk about your childhood and being quite ordinary and dullish. happy childhood?
Well,
And
as
that you
in
kind
like
of wish
because
you-
my parents love each other.
Yeah.
They're still very happy. I spent the afternoon with my mother.
Yeah.
They were actually around the corner having a drink at the Cork and Bottle.
Oh, lovely.
So that's very nice. So I grew up with 3 brothers. We get on very well.
Where did you grow up? Because I haven't managed to find that piece of information
In
out.
Ealing Broadway.
Did you? I know Ealing.
Yeah, Ealing Broadway. So when the tube says this train terminates at Ealing Broadway,
Yeah.
I go, home. But yeah, so I grew up very happily. I was very religious as a child as well. So I had not only the love of my family, but the love of Jesus Christ our Lord.
Okay.
So I felt very fulfilled until I sort of hit 17 and then went a bit mad,
In
as
what
you
way?
do. Well, you
rebelling?
go, yeah, no, not rebellious. No, I've never been rebellious. I'm a very nice person and worry far too much about other people's feelings. But I stopped loving Jesus, and then that sort of, I think, spiraled me into a pit of despair of like, well, if that's not real, what is real? And just went into a teenage girl, let's go out with awful boys who are, and maybe they'll feel the whole left by Jesus Christ our Lord. Yeah, that's easy. So I was sort of suffered a lot in a typical teenage Hollyoaks style way.
Yeah.
I dyed my hair purple and I cried a lot and I would scream. So I used to do this character called Loretta Main, who's an American singer-songwriter. One cheer, see? But why did she stop doing it? Ask that one guy. And she was entirely based on me as a 17 to 19-year-old because I would just cry. And I did my teenage diary for Radio 4 and I found a poem that I wrote, and it's all just like Loretta. It's just, why doesn't he love me? My heart is black. My eyeliner is black. Tears flow, broken, alone. But why did he break up with you? I just don't know. So I was a sort of tortured late teenager and a very holy early teenager.
That's quite interesting to leave it that late, I think, to lose your religion, maybe. I think because I was brought up my mum and dad are religious, but I was sort of like, and I was really into it when I was really little, and then when I was about 10, I went.
Oh yeah, so I had Richard Curtis Church, I call it, until I was about 11. So that's the kind of classic 4 weddings and a funeral. Everyone's very nice vicar, all those sort of, and the church choir. And it's very much about the community rather than about necessarily God. Although I'm sure some of them would kill me for saying that. But it's more about that they are an amazing community, and they're still my parents' friends and everything. But then I went to Baptist church,
right.
And if you've never been to Baptist church, you've got to go, guys. It is incredible. It's like guitars and drums. Everyone puts their hands in the air. People are talking in tongues. It's like, what is this? And there's real joy in the room and excitement. And when you're sort of 11, that's a great time to discover that, isn't it?
Yeah,
my mum used to call it my chrysalis. She thought it was where I went because it was scary becoming a woman. So during the period of 11 to 17, I hid in the church while my tits grew.
But that's quite showbiz as well. So there's obviously this showbiz element in you that wanted to go on CITV and beat Neil Buchanan. That's in a way you were. And what's interesting about this, because I didn't know there was a religious upbringing to it, but you do an atheist Sunday.
It's not atheist, Richard.
Sorry, you do a non-religious.
Thank you.
Sunday assembly.
Yes.
Which is it's the idea of being able to get to, which is a brilliant idea. It's a lovely idea, and that's when I was very lonely in the 1990s and early 2000s. You kind of thought, why isn't there somewhere
for me to go?
Well, just you can go and meet some people, or just use your time effectively and do something nice for other people. It was so difficult to find that. So certainly before the internet, and
Yeah, we're definitely a pre-internet thing. So Sunday assembly is like church for people who don't believe in God. So the concept being very much based in that idea of churches do great stuff, like community stuff. A lot of people, if they move away, then they move to like a tiny village, the only place to meet someone is to go to church. So you get a lot of people going to church who don't believe in God, but go, I need something to belong to, or I need to get my child into primary school. One of those two things. So where is the space for people who don't believe in God? And it's not against church at all, because I think actually organised religions do some good stuff. We can discuss that if you wish. But I think that sense of community is very much being lost. And your interview with Johan Hari was quite interesting because, you know, some of his book is about that as well.
Yeah.
And there is a truth that we've lost that idea of, or not the idea of community. There's a lot of people longing, particularly in big cities, for community. So we started this in 2013. There's now 55 around the world.
Okay.
And the one in London is twice a month, and there's 400 people coming every time. So there is something there, you know.
Yeah.
So it's only in its infancy. It's 5 years. But I'm hoping that in like 200 years, there'll be a myth about me and Sanderson Jones, who I started with. It'd be like, because we met in a car going to a gig in Bath and talked about, wouldn't it be great if there was a place that was sort of like church but without God? And we just decided to do it. Yeah. But I'm hoping in 250 years it will be, they rode the black unicorn down to Bath. Her hair was flowing. And then they flew into the sky and they dropped the book of the Sunday Assembly. And it was born.
So you do, like, you have choirs and stuff, do you? And is it got all, all the aspects of...
Yeah, so instead of hymns, we sing pop songs.
Yeah.
And instead of a sermon, we have someone do an interesting talk, like a TED Talk kind of style.
Yeah.
And then we have someone from the community come and tell their own story. So if the TED Talk was about, I don't know, we had one recently about body image. So someone did a talk about their own struggles with their body image, and then we talked as a room about, like, what does it mean to love it? Do we really need to love our bodies? What's that all about? And then we have a moment of silence, so everyone sits quietly together, because you don't get to do that very much, especially if Brian Blessed is in the room.
And then does someone go, but what if Jesus is real? And then it sort of changes.
Oh, yeah, that would change it slightly. But I think the kind of people who come to Sunday Assembly would probably turn around, and they wouldn't attack them. They'd say, hey, guys, it's just not really your space. Would you mind leaving? And they'd say, oh, sorry. And they'd leave.
And so, yeah, did you have a schism with one of the assemblies over them being too atheistic in America?
So in America, we had a schism with one in New York where they wanted to do it in a bikini bar. So it was like at 11 o'clock in the morning, the one in London. And so lots of people got in touch when we did the first one, like, we want this where we are. So it's 11 o'clock in the morning in a hall. We encourage families to come, so it really is like a family thing. And they wanted to do it at night in a bikini bar, and they wanted to be drinking like beers at the front and be like, this is the Sunday Assembly. And they wanted to talk exclusively about not believing in God. And actually, most people who don't believe in God are bored of talking about not believing in God, or haven't even really thought about it. Like, most people don't actually think about God that much if they've made that decision. There's people who've gone through a change that have left church, and that's a big ordeal. But there's a lot of people who just don't care. They don't care. So we're trying to explain that, going, this isn't about fighting the church. This is about, right, well, if we don't believe in that, what do we believe in? Let's talk about that instead. Yeah. And they wouldn't have it. And so we had to ask them to stop being a Sunday Assembly.
Right.
And that's when you realise what copyright law is for. And we didn't have any. So if you go on Facebook, you could still probably find their Facebook group, even though that was 4 years ago, because we have to, it's like trying to get Facebook to take anything down is impossible, isn't it? Yeah. So
it's very like the Christian faith.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Splitting off into different ones.
Yeah, 100%. And eventually, there'll be loads of things like Sunday Assembly eventually. There'll be lots of different ones, because people will go, well, I like the idea, but I don't want to sing Desiree at 11 o'clock in the morning.
Are they insisting on calling it the Sunday Assembly?
Yeah.
Why don't they just call it something else?
Well, that's why
like
I wouldn't
the
say
Sunday
Richard.
load of cunts.
Yeah. Angry Sunday people. Sunday people who really fucking hate Jesus, by the way, just in case you didn't get that from my face. We had a lot of people get really angry with it, because they were atheists, and they felt like we were destroying atheism by having people gather. So one time we were doing Sunday Assembly, and I was the only sort of leader person there. Sanderson was away somewhere, and this guy came in, and he was like 100% cliche atheist man. He had a black headscarf on, tied in a knot. He was wearing all black, and he was Polish, and he said, "Excuse me, you are from the Sunday Assembly? I want to record it today. I want to do an interview with you afterwards." And I was like, oh God, he's going to kill me. And so we did it, and we did the Sunday Assembly, and afterwards he said, come, it's time for you to do an interview with me. And I said, okay. And I sat with him, and he went, I seen you, no? I read about Sunday Assembly. I was so angry when I read about it. You are ruining atheism. You're ruining everything about what we do as atheists. And now I see that actually all you want is to bring people together to recognize that there is humanity in all of us, and that we are all the same. So please, can I ask you, may I have a hug? That is the power of Sunday Assembly.
I've done stuff with the Humanists, and I'm involved in the Humanist Society. And when I've been to they do like weekends, and it is still very like church though. And they are much more atheistic than this sounds. But they still have like a choir comes on and sings a little song.
Yeah.
And then someone does a sermon. So it's sort of a similar thing. I wonder whether there's a part of you, it feels like, is there a part of you just craving that childhood experience?
Yeah, like regression.
Yeah.
There's something about regression. But I don't know.
It's comfortable because it's familiar, but it's, but then it's something.
But then you could say that karaoke is the same or any of those things that we do.
I'm not criticising it. I'm just saying.
No, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure it is partly that, but it's also something very soothing about singing together.
Yeah.
In the same way, like at the end of a wedding when everyone's like just drunk and singing, "Hi ho, silver lining." It's sort of that feeling.
Yeah.
But at 11 o'clock
Well, that's
in the morning.
that's what my daughter, when we're singing, she's singing Frozen in the car, and I want to join in. I thought, like, I'd get at least 2 or 3 years where we'd have a nice. I really remember driving places with my family and singing, with my family. But my daughter's, no, I'm Elsa. Shut up. No.
I used to do that with my brothers.
Yeah.
We used to have a Simpsons Sing the Blues cassette tape. I don't know if anyone had that album. Yeah. And we used to fight over who got to sing Do the Bartman. So my mum would have to do a rota, like, who gets to sing Do the Bartman tonight. So we're like, do the Bartman, do the Bartman. How's it go? But swing about his hip to side to side. No, you don't remember it that well. All right.
No, I can vaguely remember the Bartman was the first thing I saw of The Simpsons. I hadn't seen The Simpsons on Sky, I think, at the time, and it made me think, oh, that's a load of shit.
Oh.
Yeah, but I'm older than you.
You were very angry, weren't you?
I wasn't angry, but I just thought that it looked very commercial, and so I kind of rejected The Simpsons, and then only, it would literally just come out, and then I was very much in love with The Simpsons for the first 200 episodes.
When you sing Let It Go with your daughter,
well,
when she allows you, do you sing, are you able to hit the high notes?
I don't know if I probably can. She lets me sing. I made up a song for her that she will now sing with me.
Yeah?
I've been singing to for a long time.
How's it go?
It goes, who's a little monkey sitting in a tree? P-H-O-E-B-E. Who's a little watermelon slip floating out to sea? P-H-O-E-B-E. It's Phoebe, Phoebe. She's a little monkey sitting in a tree. Phoebe, Phoebe. Sometimes it's coconut. She's a little coconut floating out to sea. But now I've got a son, I've got to put him in as well. Oh. So he becomes the coconut, and it's E-R-N-E-S-T. And so she can nearly spell her name, because she can't do anything else. She's got the E-B-E bit right down now. Nice. I'll record it, I'll put it out.
Christmas number one?
Yeah. Well, you've had, talking of that, you nearly had a Christmas number one.
Oh, with
your Christmas number 6.
With what was that with Merry Christmas?
Yeah.
Was it? So I've got 3 Christmas.
Oh my goodness!
But one of them was.
Was it? Yeah.
I can't remember how it went.
You should know. I don't know why I'm being quizzed about your life.
You keep asking me about things. I'm like, what? Oh yeah, I do that. Yeah. With Matt Roper was Happy Goddamn Christmas to You. That one?
Yes,
was
I
it
think
that one?
Was it, yeah.
Yeah, Happy Goddamn Christmas. It was a great Christmas song.
Yeah.
Arthur Smith appears in it,
yes.
playing a keyboard in the toilet. It was supposed to be like a cameo, but it just looks really weird because we didn't kind of set it up. There was no sort of, he's not planted in the first scene to suddenly appear in the second scene. Just suddenly the door opens and there's Arthur Smith playing a keyboard on a toilet. It's nice though.
That's the kind of thing I'd imagine Arthur Smith doing. Right, I'm going to ask you an emergency question.
Okay.
So I didn't get to do any of these. What's the strangest thing you've ever found in the embers of a bonfire? I wish I'd asked that to Brian Blessed. What's the strangest thing you've ever found in the embers of a bonfire? Have you ever found anything strange or unusual? It's the same thing.
In the embers of a bonfire?
Yeah, the embers of a bonfire. Like a bonfire, it's burnt. And then there are
I know
embers.
what embers are, Richard.
I'll just give you some time to think.
Yeah. No, I can't imagine that. I've not been near a bonfire.
Or a fireplace.
Or a fireplace. Open fires don't really exist anymore, do they?
They do come around to my house.
Have you got open fires?
Yeah.
I can't think of anything that I found in a fire.
Well, that's
maybe a end of a marshmallow that got dropped in, like a rusty. That's the wrong crusty end of a marshmallow.
Yeah.
No, it just makes me think of that letter in Mary Poppins when they write the letter and then they rip it up and they send it up to her.
Yeah.
They put it in the fire, and I always used to think, how she got that? How did she get that at the end of that?
Yeah.
Mary Poppins, because someone would have had to catch it all at the top, wouldn't they? How did it all go up to her?
It's a good question. Also, quite often what happens with things like that is they get caught in the chimney and then everyone dies of carbon monoxide poisoning. I know quite a lot about that. I won't bore you about the latest aspects of my boiler. My goodness. Have you ever improvised a condom? This is a good question to ask someone who improvises.
I haven't, but my friend Gemma, she once went home with a guy, and he was like, "Yeah, come on, let's do it." And she said, "Have you got a condom?" And he was like, "No, it'll be fine." She went, "No, it won't be fine. Go and get a condom." He's like, "All right." And he went out the room, and then he came back and he turned the lights out. And she sort of went, and then all she had was this crinkling. And she reached down and he'd got an empty packet of crisps. And sellotaped it to his penis. But she said the worst thing was they were salt and vinegar. So she was just like, surely that's just really painful. Anyway, so they had sex.
Depends which which way round did he put the salt and vinegar bit, though? Did he put it on the outside or the inside?
Is he a considerate lover? That's the question. Yeah.
Well, I don't know which is the more considerate. I mean, it might be pretty good. I'm going to have to go home and try it both ways. And see how it goes. So I asked that question because there was someone saying, I think like a boost wrapper might be quite good.
Yeah, that might be working.
Yeah.
But surely just a good wrap around with cling film will work, surely. Yeah. If you've got your balls in it as well for some kind of... to get it clinging underneath.
Yeah. Yeah, it might be too restrictive. It might be too tight.
In the old days, the ladies of the night used to put half an orange, like a hollowed out orange, didn't they? And I always used to think, that would sting. But your vagina would smell delicious, wouldn't it? Like a tasty
also, you could
orange.
do that wah, wah, wah.
Yeah. That would be horrific. You'd never eat an orange again, would you? Or maybe you would. The happy memories of the lady of the night. Now I want to think about more ways to do that. Bubble gum? Could you do that with bubble gum? Chew enough gum?
And put it there as a barrier?
No, I mean...
on the
around
outside.
the cock top. Around the cock top. I'd studied biology at school. I feel like a lot of vegetables you could hollow out, Cucumber you could hollow out.
Yeah.
But get a bit wide, it would get maybe a bit too much girth.
I think the problem with a cucumber is it would... it would create a barrier in the lovemaking that it wouldn't be like having sex with someone. It would just like having your penis in a cucumber or a cucumber in you. I mean, you could just get rid of the...
Just get rid
keep
of the
cucumber.
Yeah, you're true. It's true. You're true. You're true. What's that mean?
I am true.
Puff pastry? Puff pastry. It's quite durable, isn't it?
I don't know.
You never made a puff pastry tart? Right? Double entendre, probably, that, somewhere.
I think they might crumble a little bit. Are you talking
I'm talking about raw. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what you could do is roll it out quite thin. Make a cock shape with your cock. Obviously,
Yeah.
you'd have to have a fluff, and then you'd put it on your cock, and then you'd put it in the freezer so it freezes.
Yeah.
And so that probably, depending on who you're with, maybe you'd have to make love outside so that it didn't have too much heat on it.
Yeah.
So really good for camping sex. There you go. Puff pastry.
I thought you were going to say you'd be able to cook it.
You could as you
were doing it.
That would be exciting, wouldn't it?
Would it be warm enough inside there? Could you create enough friction to actually cook some pastry and then eat it?
But like a new kind of sausage roll, wouldn't it?
That was a good emergency question. This time. What is the biggest animal whose life you have saved?
The biggest animal whose life I've saved?
Yeah. It's a brand new emergency question just for you.
I don't know if I've ever saved an animal's
Any
life,
kind of
but
animal?
I might have. I found a dead body once.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. He was just on the side of the road, and it's quite weird when you see a dead body, isn't it? Because you don't really know.
I don't know.
No one
I've
ever
never
says
seen
what
one.
should you do with a dead body. You call the police, obviously. But it was just quite weird to see a dead body because it was like it was just a body because there was no soul left. You know, they were just there like a body, and you just go, oh gosh.
How had they passed on?
They'd obviously fallen, a big smack on their head,
Oh, no.
and it was very cold. A bit sad, that story, isn't it?
It is.
But they all lived happily ever after.
The only thing I've seen die is my cat.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and that's. Then at the same time I saw a dead body that year as well. But I saw it's amazing when you see like there's a moment when they're alive and there's a moment when they're dead. When an animal is, it's just very clear straight away. But then I saw my first dead body of a human that year as well, when I went on holiday to Indiana with my wife to meet her auntie and her husband died. So great holiday. It was a fucking great holiday.
I saved my guinea pig's life when I was a child.
Did you? There you go. That's a big animal.
I see that as well. Well, I came downstairs. So we had a sliding glass door. And I came downstairs and we used to have like one of those runs. So we had a rabbit cage in the hutch. And then in there lived the rabbit and the guinea pig. And looked out of the window. And I was just trying to... It was a bit stiff, the lock. I was trying to open the door. And I was like... The rabbit's body looks quite long. It's got quite long legs today. It seems wrong. And I realised it was a fox had got in the run. And as I realised, as I had the moment where I realised, the fox turned to me and it had the body of my rabbit in its mouth, and the head was gone completely. It was like a scene from a horror film. And I just started screaming, "Get off my rabbit! Get out!" I was trying to open it. I couldn't open the door. And my mum came downstairs going, "What are you screaming about, Squeaky? What is going on down here?" And I said, and we couldn't open the doors. There's both of us there. My mum loves those Pastimes 90s, you know, so she looks like Charles Dickens. So I was like, go on! And so we opened the door and managed to get rid of the fox. So he got my rabbit, but he didn't get my guinea pig. But the guinea pig died 3 days later because it had got his jaws around it and crushed all of her insides. Wow. That's what that...
So in a way, saving the guinea pig was the worst thing you could have done. You gave it 3 more days of extreme pain.
That's right. But I felt good for myself. My own honour was saved.
That's good.
I tried. Little Tonic, he was called.
Oh.
And he had a brother called Gin.
Gin, yeah.
But Gin had died.
Yeah.
When we got Gin and Tonic, Gin died within 1 day. In that great way. You know, people say that you should get a pet for kids so that they learn about death. Like, that's their first experience of death. And it was the most... We didn't even get to know the guinea pig. We just held it and it died. It's like, I have horrible powers. It's not good.
I'll give you one more new emergency question. I might have asked this one before. What film/story would you like to see remade by the Muppets?
Ooh.
That hasn't been done already, because The Christmas Carol is very good. I like Twelfth Night. I have discussed this before. I think Twelfth Night would be very good with the Muppets in it.
I'm not very good at knowing what Shakespeare plays. What happens in Twelfth Night?
Well, it's just loads of crazy characters, but they all kind of fit the Muppets quite well.
Oh, I see.
You need like a human, I think, as Malvolio maybe, or it could be Uncle Sam could be Malvolio. Have I got the right one? Yeah, I think.
Yes, it is Malvolio. Yeah, I remember it now. I think
someone was saying Die Hard with the Muppets would be really good.
Yeah, that'd be quite good.
That would be.
I'd quite like to see Remains of the Day with the Muppets. So you have. So I suppose Miss Piggy would have to be Emma Thompson's character, and Kermit would be Mr. Stevens.
Yes.
Going, please leave me alone. Please, please, just leave me alone. Come on, show me the book, Mr. Stevens. Show me what you're reading in there. Who would Monster play? Monster would have to play... no, I don't know. No. There's only 2 real characters.
They are good, but that's... I think in Christmas Carol, I've said this before, my favourite scene and the best thing that Michael Caine has ever done is acting against Beaker.
Oh, yeah.
But acting really seriously.
Yeah.
So, like, Beaker's going... and Michael Caine is so in character.
Yeah.
And so seriously Scrooge. And the scientist guy's going, oh, come on, you're going to give some money. And Beaker's just going, and moving around. And Michael Caine doesn't, he doesn't do anything for laughs, and it's way funnier. So I think the idea of doing a deadly sort of Schindler's List with the Muppets.
Yes.
But they play it very straight. That could work. I like that idea.
I think that would be very powerful. Yeah.
But I think it would, because it's better than with humans, really, isn't it?
Imagine them all in their pyjamas, looking sad. You started that, Richard.
It would be when he's shooting them off the balcony. A few of the Muppets I'd see shot off the balcony. I think it would make you sympathise with the Nazis too much. With someone...
Especially when they started singing. Oh, no, we should have never done that, feeling bad in the heart. I wish I hadn't blown that Jewish man apart. Oh, no, we are nasty people. Oh, no, diddly bom bom bom. Then there'd be sing along, Schindler's List. wouldn't there?
There was.
At the Prince Charles Cinema down the road. Come on, sing along with Schindler's List and the Muppets.
We're going to make it happen. Who's going to be the one human being in it? Ralph Fiennes could still be in it. That would be good. And you have been, this is a pretty big honour, I think. You have been in I'm Sorry I Haven't a Clue.
Oh, that was amazing. Yeah, that was a great day.
How did that come about?
That came about because I did a gig with you. I think you were there.
I was there.
And you were there. And you were there. For the slapstick thing in Bristol.
Oh, yes, yeah.
It's like a charity thingy doodles for people that they celebrate slapstick films. And they have a big fundraiser and they get lots of famous people along and then they ring me. And then they go, hey, we need more women. That's generally. We need more women. Pips, can you come down? So it was me, you, Jack D, Susan Coleman, and Jason Manford, I think, turned up. So it was great. A really cool lineup. And Jack D just really enjoyed my set. And he said, I think, would you like to come and do?
Now I'm offended. Now I'm offended that you saw my set. I was on first.
And I was like, yes. Well, obviously inside I was like, oh my God, I don't know if I could do this. And they were so nice to me. And to this day, Barry Cryer is still my pal. And he calls me up every so often and says, Pips, it's so lovely to see you. Because we were supposed to do a gig the other day, but he wasn't very well. Boo. Oh. So he rang me up to say he was sorry to not see me. I was like, surely I should have called you up because you weren't very well. He's a very polite man.
He's very nice. He rang me on my birthday.
Oh,
he's a very nice man.
He rings people just to be nice to them. It's so nice. He rings people for a chat.
He does.
Like,
well, he's like out of all that, and he's like probably in his 80s now. I think is he? I think he's
yes, something like 83 or 4.
And he of that generation. It's sort of interesting because I know you're interested in musical and everything, and so like Ken Dodd is like a big deal to you.
Yeah.
I guess that he's the last real. There's 2 or 3 other people, but really the last real connection to that full-on musical thing. And Barry Crier's probably like he's just a little bit younger, but he's more the 60s satire thing. But a lot of that generation, when comedy changed, got annoyed that comedy had changed and refused to change with it.
Yeah.
But Barry's always stayed very interested in comedy. You know, he's interested in comedy.
Yeah.
And he likes all kinds of comedy. He really likes our generation and your generation and the generation below's comedy because he's interested in comedy. So
he said that to in Stuart Goldsmith's podcast. Right. Dare I mention another one? Mm, yeah. But he said Stuart interviewed Barry and it split into 2-hour-long things because he's got so fascinating. Yeah. And he says Stuart says something along those lines. You know, you seem so interested in comedy and you seem to be really up to date with what's going on. And he said, of course I do. I like talking about the past. I don't want to live in it. I thought it was a really good line, actually.
It is good.
So he really does enjoy other people's comedy rather than just sitting with his arms crossed going, it's not like in my day.
Yeah. You know? Well, that's a really difficult thing to overcome. You know, and you see it. I see it in the 50-year-old comedians. I see, you hang around with they've already got that. They're looking at the new kids coming up and getting angry about it, and you sort of think, but you know, you were there once, and you know, why would you not? If you like comedy, you should enjoy other people having a crack at it. You know, it's sort of interesting. I'm doing this thing tomorrow where I'm talking about the young ones, which was such a big deal to me, like one of those talking head programs. Such a big deal to me when I was 16. But I haven't really watched it again since, you know. And then you kind of watch it, and it's still funny, but you kind of go, God, you can understand why this would annoy my parents. And you go, which I am now their age. But, you know, I still haven't got to the point where I go, whoa, it's no good. It's really good still. But
it's like when people get upset about Friends. So Friends was my generation's whole... Like, we used to go home on a Friday night before 9 o'clock so we could watch Friends on Channel 4. And now there's all these articles coming about how homophobic it is. And me and my husband just rewatched literally all of Friends.
Right.
And it is massively homophobic. Like, every time Matt or Matt LeBlanc, my friend Matt, every time Joey... and Chandler touch, they then go, whoa, we're just friends. So the whole thing is incredibly homophobic, and it's only in season 9 or 10 that Phoebe starts calling them out on it, which feels like it's actually really Lisa Kudrow going, okay, all right, enough with your homophobic jokes, she says at least twice. Yeah. So even they started to notice it by then.
Yeah.
So, but when people go, Friends, I couldn't watch that, it's terrible, I do feel a bit protective of it and go, but they did every storyline, they did literally every storyline anyone's ever done. And the fact that they're called the one where, you know, the one where Joey kisses the wrong girl, and someone goes, oh, I've got an idea for a sitcom. It's gonna be a guy, but he's going out with twins, and he kisses the wrong. You can just go through the whole of the Friends titles and go, it's already been done.
Yeah.
And that's quite frustrating, I think, for a lot of people as well. Because also the other thing is, in music hall day, you would tour around with your set of jokes for like 4 years before you'd have to change your set at all, if you changed it at all. Because by the time you came back, people go, oh, it's the guy who does the wooden leg thing, and they go, we want to see the wooden leg thing. So if you turned up and went, oh no, I've got a new act, they go, I don't want to see that. I want to see that. Whereas now, because everything's recorded, it's much harder. You burn up your material so quickly, and people want to see new stuff.
I think that's sort of true, but I think now it's gone beyond it almost, because now even if something's on TV, only 500,000 people see it. So I mean, there's still a lot of people, but that still gives you, most people won't see. There's so much options to see stuff now. So when you look at Morecambe and Wise or whatever in the 70s, we're getting 30 million viewers, and Zcars was getting 35 million viewers, and Brian Blessed was the master of ceremonies at the Hong Kong handover. He told me backstage, and that got. And he told me backstage that got 3.5 billion viewers.
Wow.
So back in 1997, when that happened, there was a lot of people watching telly. But no, so I think you can.
But I suppose what I mean is more that it's all available constantly now. So in the old days, if you wanted to see the Morecambe and Wise Christmas special, you had to wait till Christmas.
Yeah, true.
Whereas now you go, I'm going to see Richard Herring do his stand-up show. I'll just look and see what's on YouTube. They can watch all of your material before they've even got to your comedy gig, and they go, I've seen that, you know.
So you are interested in the musical, and you've done shows like...
I love old-time musical. I love Chaz and Dave. I love. Thank you.
One guy loves you.
I've got one fan. Thank you for coming. I love old time musical. There's something about the naughtiness of it. I love that. I love winking, and I think winking is being lost. I love that people, that's what that music hall is. You know, when you listen to the lyrics, a lot of them are quite banal, and then it's all in the performance. So if you listen to the recordings, because when the recordings came in, Murray Lloyd and all the sort of old school proper music hall, it was right at the end of their careers. So they sound rubbish. You can't believe that these people ever performed to thousands and thousands of people, that people would, throw coins for them, throw flowers for them. But it was because they were such great communicators with the audience. And that's what I love, is I love doing shows where I'm talking to the audience. Why I love Showstopper is because every show feels like we made it together. Sure. Even if there's 6 performers on stage doing the majority of the work, we know that we're doing the show the audience wants. Whereas with stand-up, obviously, you get on stage and you say, here's my hour of my stand-up. You might not like it, but I'm just going to do my hour of stand-up. Whereas we can mould ourselves to create the show that room wants. Yeah. And I think that's really a special thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you play something like the Leeds City Varieties, which I assume have you played Leeds City?
I've never actually played it. I've been there to see this. I've never played it.
Okay, but there must be theatres you've been to that are the musical ones.
When I did the Hackney Empire New Act of the Year competition in 2008, I really genuinely felt at home on that stage, and I loved it. And when I did live at the Palladium last year with Barry Manilow headlining. That was interesting. He's very thin. His face is quite terrifying. He looks like a shaved hamster who's had its skin stretched over it. So I couldn't believe he was real. His legs were like chopsticks, right. And he had to hold himself up walking down the stairs. It was like I thought he was a robot of himself.
It could be. He's been going a long time. He was one of my first crushes when I was like 4 or 5 years old.
Really?
There was an advert, but like I had a lot of weird crushes, but I think they were kind of quite. My brain's not going to work now, but this sexually ambiguous, because like Barry Manilow could have been a man or a woman really when you're 4 or 5, and Brian Connolly from The Sweet, who you won't necessarily remember, was a very pretty. Sweet were a very transvestite kind of band, really.
Oh, I see. No, I know who Brian Connolly is. Yeah. Connolly is.
Brian Connolly.
So not Brian Connolly.
No, Brian Connolly.
It's a puppet, that guy.
Brian Connolly, who is the half-brother of Taggart.
Oh, wow.
Not just the character as well. It's amazing. And they both died, but he's died, hasn't he, Taggart? Yeah, because that's why he's not in it anymore. They both died of alcohol-related. Yeah. But when they were young, I imagine Taggart was similarly pretty when he was young, but it's hard to imagine. So Barry Manilow I used to feel a bit funny in my tummy when there was an advert. Nana Muscuri as well.
Oh, right.
Very eclectic taste.
Very eclectic taste. But yeah, when I went on stage at the London Palladium, I felt really at home and really loved it. I just love those old spaces where those shows were about entertaining the room rather than, I don't know, getting your next 5 minutes on the thing or to feed the tour. That was the show.
No,
and those spaces are built so that everyone in the room feels a part of the show. And that it's just magical spaces to play.
But you feel backstage, and again, I think we talked about this quite recently because I did a gig in St Albans where there was a picture of Morecambe and Wise in the exact dressing room, 40 years ago or whatever. And they were 50, they were exact same age as me as well. Does it sort of strike you, all those people that you are talking about from hundreds of, 100 years ago will have been in that dressing room and been on that stage where you were. That's kind of and we were talking about with Brian backstage as well, that kind of, you've worked with someone who's been working for 40 or 50 years and then you're just one step away from working with, whoever it was in the 1960s.
Yeah, which is, I think also, again, to loop it back to the beginning of the conversation is why people do get bitter is because you go, well, I'm in the same space as where Morecambe and Wise were, so why am I not as good as Morecambe and Wise? Or why am I not the same, why have I not got the same thing? And because times have changed.
Well, I worked out with Morecambe and Wise that I took more money on the door than they did at St Albans Arena. I went and found out how much the ticket price was. I assumed they filled it. I made that assumption. I didn't fill it, but I made more money than they did. Except someone told me that they famously got paid in cash. So,
oh, really?
Yeah, well, I think everyone did.
In the old days.
I'm going to make a controversial point. I think Ken Dodd got paid in cash and didn't declare it.
Oh, yeah.
I know he was never found guilty of that, but I think he did it. So they would have walked away. And in their day, it would have been the equivalent of walking away with 15 grand of our money. But, and I'm not going to take that into account. I made more money because their tickets were 25p. And they were £2, I think, their ticket.
Wow.
So you still do make those. But for me, there's just a weird mindset. You either look at it one way or the other way, and maybe you get mature and you see it the more sensible way. But it's kind of magical to have even been in the same space as Morecambe and Wise. I think that's what, when you see a picture of them and you go, Eric, I didn't actually dare sit where Eric Morecambe had sat.
Wow.
Because I didn't feel I deserved it. I sat on the chair that Ernie Wise was sitting on. I felt I deserved that. But when you actually see it and literally see this is the space where they were, I think that's incredibly exciting. It's not like, oh God, why am I not Eric Morecambe?
Oh no.
Yeah, no, but
that's why it's so amazing the connect. I love when you're backstage at the pantomime and you see all the pantomime posters and you see who was this famous person in the because again we always go, oh well, they in the West End they always put celebrities in shows. They've always put celebrities in shows to sell tickets. Like the amount of Kenneth Williams is in so many plays that he shouldn't be in. He shouldn't be playing King Lear, Kenneth Williams, but he's there like King Lear with Kenneth Williams. You daughters disappoint me. All those guys and Basil Brush and whenever I see the Chuckle Brothers have been somewhere, my heart it beats faster. Or even the fact that you spoke to Trevor and Simon last week is like so exciting.
It was exciting. There was I took a picture of it. It was one theatre, and I forget where it was, where they had pictures backstage, and they had a picture of me and then the Chuckle Brothers above it. Oh. So I took a picture of that. I was very excited about that. But some of them are lovely, because some of them have those really old, that it's all the 70s sitcom stars in the plays, whatever, touring companies. It must have been dire for them. But it's very exciting. But yeah, okay. How long have we done, Ben? What?
Oh, God! We could have stopped ages ago.
Fucking hell, that's amazing. Great, off you go. Off you trot. It's been contractual obligation fulfilled. No, that was very interesting, and thank you very much for taking on the mantle of following Brian Blessed.
It's my job, as I say, to often follow the biggest character in the room.
But it was, that is what is lovely about this show, is it can have two very different feeling things in the same evening. And at least I got to say something in this one. Maybe Brian Blessed had the right idea. But ladies and gentlemen, please give a massive round of applause, Pippa Evans! fantastic. Come and see Maria Bamford next week. Honestly, please come. It's going to be awesome. Bye-bye. How'd you like them sky potatoes?